This is a story about a genie. No, not that genie. No, not that genie either. This is a story about this genie. A genie that was summoned 60 years ago and changed the world forever.
Hi, I'm Steven.
Hi, I'm Trace.
We have a story to tell.
A story about secrecy.
A story about power.
A story about scientific discovery. A story about sorrow.
A story about intense regret.
We found the story of the first atomic bomb, which was dropped on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan in August of 1945.
This is the story of the Manhattan Project.
Let's lay down the basic facts. In 1940, a Hungarian scientist by the name of Leo Szilard talked to Einstein, who wrote to President Roosevelt that Hitler might be making a super bomb.
And the U.S. did not want Hitler to have a super bomb.
So President Roosevelt started a 4-year top-secret project called the Manhattan Project, which was headed by Robert Oppenheimer and General Grove. They employed 43,000 people from 19 states.
Now this is the interesting part. All those 43,000 people knew that they were working on something secret, but only a handful of people knew they were working on an atomic bomb.
Why was this so top secret? Because the United States was so worried about German and Russian spies.
We knew most of the research started at the University of Chicago, so we talked to Stephen Schwartz, the editor of the Bulletin for Atomic Scientists.
What exactly was the Manhattan Project?
The Manhattan Project was a massive scientific effort and industrial effort to, first of all, ascertain whether or not atomic energy could be liberated for military purposes. If it could, to develop atomic bombs that could be used against Nazi Germany.
Is it true that the Manhattan Project was so top secret that President Roosevelt didn't even tell Vice President Truman?
It's true that the Manhattan Project was so secret that very few people knew about it, including Vice President Truman. And so when he became president, after President Roosevelt's death, he did not know anything about the project until he was briefed. So yes, that's absolutely true.
What exactly was the Trinity test?
The Trinity test was the first test of a nuclear weapon anywhere in the world. In July 1945 was a proof test, basically to verify for the scientists whether the weapon that they had built at great expense would actually work.
Great expense. It was $2 billion. In today's dollars, that would be $26 billion.
If it did work, we would use it against Japan, which of course we ultimately did. Many scientists at the time, after the test was conducted, felt that we had liberated the atomic genie, as it were, from the bottle, and at that point there would be no going back.
What is the doomsday clock?
The doomsday clock over my shoulder here was designed by a woman, an artist named Martil, in 1947, and the story behind it is actually very interesting.
We went to interview Martil, the artist of the doomsday clock. She was great, and her house was awesome.
My husband was one of the scientists that helped develop the bomb. Famous scientists all converged in the United States. First at Columbia University in New York, and then they came to Chicago because it was in the interior of the country and it was safer. Then they all went out to Los Alamos. Then World War II began, and they put a secrecy on this project immediately. The secrecy was clamped down so nobody could talk about anything. They were worried about Germany and their scientists who were ever so clever. And this was a race against what the Germans would be up to. The clock represents the urgency of the problem of the bomb and the fact that so many countries have it now, and it's the most devastating and the most horrible device ever thought up by man.
So here's the story. Manhattan scientists wanted to show the world how not to use the bomb. So Martil designed a clock to put on the cover that showed if there was another bomb that dropped, the minute hand would hit midnight. And that would mean doomsday.
Knowing what the thoughts were and agreeing with them myself about informing the world in general about the intensity and the horror of the bomb. There were 60 scientists that sent a letter to President Truman to tell them not to drop the bomb on civilians. It's never been done before in the history of civilization to kill innocent people. I thought that a clock with its hands moving toward midnight would be appropriate because it would emphasize the urgency of the project. The genie in the bottle was a phrase used that was an analogy about the bomb. Once you had the knowledge to make an atomic bomb and a hydrogen bomb and all the other wicked things that man can conjure up, once you've done it, you can never undo it.
Martel was the second person who said the bomb was like releasing the genie out of the bottle.
That got us thinking, because so much of the research happened in Chicago, maybe the genie's in Chicago. So we went to the library to find out.
Contacting the genie. It says I have one in reference in the 001s.
Okay.
Follow me. There's the book, our Genie directory.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
After talking to the librarian, we were surprised to find out that the genie was actually living in Chicago, and he lives on Lakeshore Drive. Do you remember the first time you were released from your bottle?
Yeah, it was in 1945. They were doing the Trinity tests. What kind of happened was they took me out in this big field in the middle of the desert, and they hooked me up to this device, and it was really hot. And then I definitely made that day a lot hotter, because when I exploded, I let off a lot of atomic heat. It was a weird reaction. It happened internally. It was like, two atoms come together and kaboom. And I was really confused for a little while. Then I felt really sick. And then it just kind of became blurry and hot. And, I really don't remember too much after that.
You were dropped on the city of Hiroshima only 21 days after you were freed.
Man, I hate, that was like a mistake, and it was really unfortunate what happened. It was bad, man.
Do you realize the horrible damage you would do?
Yeah, man, I feel real bad. Yeah, man, see, I'm sick and tired of people putting that on me, because, that was not my fault, Like, I'm a genie. Genies don't come. They're summoned,
Who summoned you?
His name was Oppenheimer, and then obviously Truman, because he wanted to get rid of the war. I was in a plane, in a plane called the Angola Gay, and I was just chilling in this plane, enjoying the view. It was kind of a long trip, and all of a sudden I was just in midair, and I was confused. And then I was even more confused because I exploded. And if you've ever exploded, it's not really a necessarily pleasant experience. I got really hot. My temperature was in the millions. We were all built for power. We're all big guys. We all work out. They built us for power, and we turned it into something of fear. And that was not my fault. I'm a genie. Like, look at me. I have a turban. I feel bad about how that happened. I wish that wasn't the end result.
Here's a book written about you called The Angry Genie. Do you think you're angry?
I really don't like this picture. I'm really, this is a point in my life where I was forced to do something. I look real mad. I don't really like the negative connotations that this picture brings to me. That's why I agreed to do this interview, because, I'm not a bad guy. I got cats. No, I'm a relaxed man. And I want people out there to know that. Like, you know, I got cats, I got 2 cats, and people that have cats aren't angry. It's documented. And I sew and I cook for myself. I cook a lot of pasta.
The Mayors for Peace goal is to eliminate all nuclear weapons from the face of the earth by the year 2020. Do you think it'll ever happen?
It's a nice thought, but definitely not. People will always want to try to one-up each other. And that's something I've learned as a bomb. You know, people and bombs are different because bombs never use people, and people always seem to use bombs.
What advice would you give to younger bombs that are now being made?
3 things. First is stay cool. Second is don't get all big. And then the third is relax and be a dud because you hurt people.
Mr. President, why did you drop the atom bomb?
Although Germany was no longer a threat, we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima to end the war quickly.
Many people wondered why we did this and if it was necessary.
So we went back to Stephen Schwartz to see who we interviewed next.
Are there any scientists that were involved with the Manhattan Project that are still in the Chicagoland area?
Most of the scientists who were involved in the Manhattan Project here at the University of Chicago are no longer living. However, there is one scientist that I know who is still alive in the Chicago area, and that's Dr. Al Wattenberg.
So we went to Champaign to interview Manhattan Project scientist Al Wattenberg.
How many people were allowed to know this secret information?
I would say a dozen people,
So, like, your wife, none of your family knew?
My family did not know.
Did they know that you were involved?
Not really.
So they just had no clue that you were doing this? No one knew?
No, I didn't say that. They knew that I was doing secret work that had to do with the war.
When you were 13 years old, did you think that you would be part of world history like this?
No, I didn't, not at all. So it's a very big surprise. What I wanted to be was somebody who helped a Nobel Prize winner do experiments. I wanted to work for a scientist, but I didn't think I'd be in a major historical event.
So Enrico Fermi did win a Nobel Peace Prize.
He did.
So you did actually help someone.
Oh, and how? I helped the brightest man who was alive at the time.
So we went back to Stephen Schwartz to see who to interview next.
He recommended Leon Letterman.
Leon Letterman is the president of our board of sponsors. He's a Nobel laureate, and he, in fact, it was his hand that moved our doomsday clock most recently in 2002.
Why did we build an atomic bomb? Should we have used it? We should not have used it. We didn't need to actually prove it existed in order to convince the Japanese that they were facing impossible problem in their war against us.
Do you think we would need to use it today?
It would be terrible if it were used today. Of course, we all hope that it will never be used, and I certainly would not approve of ever using it because these weapons are so terrible that it doesn't take too many of them, like 10 or 20 or 30, to destroy everybody living.
Has the atomic bomb been used since Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
No. Nuclear weapons are very, very dangerous things. These are not good things to have because if you use them and they're used against you, centrally millions of people will die, and there's no war that's worth that. One nuclear weapon is a terrible threat. Thousands of nuclear weapons is just crazy.
Trace and I got to meet the mayor of Hiroshima. He speaks for all the survivors of the atomic bomb.
These children are the ones who are telling the stories right now and who are saying that no one else should suffer the way they did.
As Mayors for Peace, he wants to get rid of all nuclear weapons by the year 2020.
I hope that the children will try to understand what these people went through by listening to their stories or reading their testimonials.
We read about a peace child statue in Hiroshima, so we contacted a 7th grader in Hiroshima to tell us more about it.
Hi, Steve and Grace. I'm Sagawa Ikumi, and I want to show you a bit of Hiroshima.
A young Japanese girl by the name of Sadako was 2 years old during the bombing of Hiroshima. In 1955, 10 years later, she contracted leukemia, which had commonly become known by the Japanese as the atom bomb disease. While hospitalized, her closest friend reminded her of an ancient Japanese legend. If she folded 1,000 paper cranes, the gods might grant her one wish. Sadako's wish was to live, so she began folding paper cranes. Sadako managed to fold 644 cranes, but died before she could finish. Her friends worked to complete the remaining 356 cranes so that Sadako would be buried with 1,000 paper cranes. In Sadako's memory, her classmates built a peace statue for all children who were victims of the atomic bombing of Japan. The statue still stands in Peace Park in Hiroshima with the inscriptions, "This is our cry, this is our prayer, to create peace in the world." Ever since, mountains of origami cranes has been sent to Hiroshima for Peace Day, August 6th.
Now we really know what weapons of mass destruction mean.
We just hope our world leaders know what it means too. We all must work together for world peace.
Nothing is impossible.